Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chauncey Kennon Commitment Watch Party on Florida at the Voice of College Football, Florida State at the Voice of College Football, Miami, LSU, Georgia, and Oregon, and recruiting at the Voice of College Football, and live on the X account of Grant Shastray, who Grant Shastray will join me in just a little bit. Let me tell you something, you're going to be in for a wild ride. Mr. Grimm is going to be joining us from X, and we're going to be seeing Leanne Herring, our national recruiting analyst from the Voice of College Football, Wildcat Flyer, and Ole Miss at the Voice of College Football, the Rebel Wall, join us. Let me tell you something, you're going to be in for a wild ride. And, Kat, we want to ask you, what is something you're looking forward to with Chauncey Kennon? Because there's a lot to look forward to. He is making that magic as a CB. And we got a roll tide from C-Bama. Roll tide, roll to you too, C-Bama. And Gerard Williams says we need DNs. Great. Well, I could see Florida State needing a lot of defense. And we got a lot of gold medals from Morris Simmons, AJ Will, 1-800-YEET. I don't think this will be that long, but we will keep you updated as soon as possible, as much as possible, like we did last night on the Michigan channel, the Florida State channel, and on the Miami channel, where John D'Animo and friends kept you updated on Calvin Russell, on what was going to happen. Miami State, that was the Oregon channel. But anyway, we will keep you updated as long as possible on Chauncey Kennon. So, and we have Grant Sashray with us from LSU Live. How you doing today, good buddy?
It's been pretty busy so far for me. Just keeping up what's going on with LSU right now. We're a little bit of a dead period, right? Just for everything going on, but especially down here in Louisiana. I mean, no Saints, no LSU, no Tulane, no nothing. So we're just trying to find things to do right now. But luckily, recruiting season never ends. So there's that. So that's what's keeping me busy, trying to find out what's going on with the latest recruitment. And also, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, and it says, let's see, and 1-800-YEET is asking, are we going to see live feed of his commitment new to this? If I can find his Instagram, we'll let you know, because I'm sure you can watch it on there. Probably can't watch on 247 Sports, but you can't. But stranger things have happened, I'm sure. And there's Leanne Herring. How you doing tonight?
Hey, gentlemen, doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me on. Let's see how the weekend uh, comes out, considering that what a bang, bang, boom has been of commitments. Calvin Harris, of course, throwing the biggest curveball, going to Q's last night, picking Florida State, over Florida State, and of course, heavy Michigan favorite. So we'll see if Chauncey Kennon, who's really kept it close to the best. I mean, for one of the top elite cornerbacks in the country, top to come out of the Sunshine State, he's definitely been really good. Gentlemen, as you guys all have probably followed his recruitment, that he's been one of those higher profile recruitments that's really kept it up to the best. I don't know what I missed out here, but just from looking at things, it really seems like Florida State has really made the biggest push from start to finish, and that's kind of where I'm thinking he's going to announce today. His sister, of course, is at Florida State, just kind of the fit in there. I don't know if you guys have got it to the breakdown, but it's going to be interesting to see if he throws a curveball. I think that for a five-star corner, he's got a lot more options than we've seen for some of the most cornerbacks in the country. Some of these guys that are more high profile, they've usually kept it down to about 3 or 4, but he has a pretty full plate in there. So, like I said, not sure what I missed since I got on, but just let me know, and then we can break him down a little bit. Been watching him for a while, watch his film, some live reps, so see where he goes.
Well, we got some film. Here we go. Ready to rock and roll. There it is.
Well, just kind of for my breakdown, not particularly this film, I kind of like I said, looked at it across the board, just kind of different things, circuits that I've seen him 7-7 playing out there for Booker. He's currently ranked the number overall 27 national player if you're looking at the 247 composites, number 2 corner in the country right now, and the number 4 to come out of Florida. So again, another top elite guys coming off the board. For me, I like to call him the neutralizer. While he's been at Booker, he's played as a junior. He's played, he's another dynamic two-way player. I said that's really been trending a lot lately. Some of these elite guys, these higher 4-stars and definitely these 5-stars. One of the things in common, not only have we been noticing more of, is that some of the guys going higher off the board, not only are they multi-sport athletes, just like Chauncey is in here, staple in track and field along with football, but more importantly, he's been a two-way player. Booker went 9-4 last season. Here we're having some of his plays made it to the Florida 3A playoffs. He did miss some action during the middle of the season for appendix injury. So again, but he still had a pretty solid campaign. I don't know if you guys have done the numbers yet, but if you have, I'm just kind of reiterate, 33 tackles, 16 PBUs, an interception, and a forced fumble on defense. And then to pair that off again, pretty explosive on offense when he got those reps in there, guys. 10 catches for 317 yards and 6 touchdowns on offense in over 12 games. Again, this is a kid I like to call a neutralizer. I think overall, even though he's a 5-star, he definitely has a lot of detailed skills to finesse. But I really think that in the right program, and I really think from what we've seen across the board and what Mike Norvell's trying to build out there, that
Here we
FSU
go.
for me to see. Oh, do we have the commitment coming in?
We just got breaking news. Breaking news. Holy. Here we go. Ooh. He's a Gator.
Oh goodness. Well, he's keeping it in. He's keeping it in the state. Definitely, again, shouldn't be surprised. That was also my other state pick. I felt like it was going to
He's
go.
flipping. No, he's a Miami. He's just
He's
having
trying
fun
out.
with it.
Oh, he's just having fun with it. He's just having fun with it. Let's see. Or is it going to be that Knowles hat that's going to go on? It looks like the Miami hat sticking.
I guess the cat's not
Nope.
liking it. He's not a Miami man.
Yeah, he's playing with it a little bit because I was going to say I didn't have the Florida Gators open there, but let's see what's going. Like I said, sister is already a Florida State Knoll. He's kept this one really tight to the vest. The Knowles have had a really strong relationship. This has been a dream opportunity for him to come. So let's see.
He's a Florida State Seminole.
Let's see if it's going to stick. Or is he still moving? Nope. Nope, it is official, guys.
That's the giveaway.
He is a Knoll. He's a Knoll. He's a Knoll. But I did like how he did it. He was keeping all those Florida schools in the mix. Like I said, this is a guy that really kept it surprisingly close to the vest from some of the intel in the camp. It was very hard to get close to Kennon's camp and Kennon himself as far as, kind of giving hints of where he stood. But again, this is a huge pickup for Mike Norvell and the Knowles, picking up one of the best corners in the country.
I do have a question though, because I know Mike Norvell is on the hot seat. If Mike Norvell was fired, say from Florida State, whether it's in the middle of the year or at the end of the year, what would be a school to watch it for to pick up his services?
It's hard to say. I haven't really, I really haven't, looked at where all the Florida schools stand. But I mean, I think he's on the hot seat. But I think what's saving Mike Norvell now, and if he's able to execute, I think too, as excited as we get about all these high-profile commitments that we're seeing for places like Florida State right now, where a person like Mike Norvell is definitely on the hot seat, truly trying to get something. It's not an immediate fix. So I think that even though Florida State has had success on this 2026 class, what they've been able to build, getting some high-profile recruits, I said that Mike Norvell's kind of took an interesting approach to recruiting. And I believe that's why he's been able to get some of the players like Kennon and some of the other high-profile players. It's unlike most of the other power players that we see, the SEC schools, the ACC schools, the Big Ten schools. You kind of know who they're jumping on. Mark Norvell's really played the smart move. He's really kind of, I've said, watch the recruiting game go, kind of let other dominoes play, see how things play out. And for some of those guys that were higher on some of these boards that haven't committed, then he went in for the kill. Florida State's really showed on this recruiting season that they've been able to close some big deals. But I think that he'll still a lot to prove. I think I could probably have a better conversation and a better guess with it. Like I said, for many things, once I see how they start the season. But I think, I think that right now, because he's having momentum on recruiting, and I think that he's played a central part in the recruiting along with some of that staff. If they were to let him go in the middle of the season, it wouldn't be a smart move for Florida State to build down the road, because like we've seen it in small instances already, that some high profile players are, as much as we talk about NIL and it plays a significant role, the relationships, the recruiting matter. Like I said, I think a big push for the Knowles that his sister's been there is already there. So there's those family ties. They've been with him from the jump to the finish. And also, I feel like Florida State on a player like Chauncey Kennon versus some of the other guys, gentlemen, that we saw trying to get his services, is that if NIL is a factor in here, which it is, especially with a 5-star, is that Florida State could probably outbeat some of those high bids because Florida State may not have a ton of money across the board to build a top to bottom 4 or 5-star roster, but what they're doing is playing smart. They're playing money ball. So what they saved in getting in building a roster with more unknowns, 3 stars, and even some 4-star guys that may not necessarily be looking so much for NIL, but be looking for a good level NIL development, or opportunity to play. They can go out and they can spend a lot of money. I think everybody was, kind of in shock when the number 1 tackle, Felix Ojo, decided not to go to Texas and is out at Texas Tech. But Texas Tech was able to play with the big boys in that game because they haven't built a roster with a ton of money. Whereas Ohio State, that's the only downfall with having a big NIL like Ohio State and some of the bigger SEC schools, is that they are building a roster full of top 4 stars and 5 stars that are probably have a higher price ticket to acquire, versus a place like Florida State. Hey, they may not have the sexiest roster when it comes to names, but because of that, they can land a player and they can often outbid some of the things from what we're hearing. So again, I think Norvell will still be in the hot seat. I think how he starts the season, how Florida State goes, will be determinant. But I think if they stay consistent across the board, I don't think they pull the plug on him just yet, just because I think he's made up for the recruiting trail. If they do that midseason, then they can say goodbye to this high-profile 2026 recruiting class, which leaves them back at square one, rebuilding again, gentlemen.
Well, we'll definitely wait and see what happens for the rest of the teams. I mean, Oregon, that's got to suck for them that they weren't even in the mix.
Yeah, Oregon is one of those schools, guys, that I think we've all kind of talked to, because some of the guys that we've all been watching it through the recruitment process at one time or another have had Oregon in the mix. But like many of those top profile schools, Oregon, as much success as it's kind of had in the summer recruiting season, it's really had a lot of missed opportunity. It feels like they haven't been able to close as many deals. Of course, we know Oregon was one of those schools. We talked about Calvin Russell yesterday. That was another kid we thought that Oregon might make a late pull, obviously in the NIL aspect, having that Nike backing. Calvin Russell was a kid that a lot of his decision was going to a place where he can not only excel on the football field, but also become a basketball player. But we saw how Oregon really, really missed. Florida State was my second pull, and of course Michigan was, the top school, I thought, but he ended up throwing everybody for a curveball and going to a place like Q's. So again, it's just really interesting to see the dynamic. But Oregon's been really surprising. I think they're going to recover. I don't think they're in a tough spot. But yeah, Oregon surprisingly has lost a lot of recruiting races, or again, they've been neck and neck with it, and then they just can't close. So again, I think Dan Lanning is in a good position. Oregon is not in a failure position. But yeah, they've definitely been one of those high profile programs that really hasn't had as much success as some of the other programs in that blue blood category, just across the board.
So what's next for LSU, Grant?
Oh, well, for starters, I think, they're going to keep continuing on, of course. This is too early to tell because you just don't know how these classes are going to end up. You see this all the time where right now LSU's number, right now they are number 10 right now, but they could be number 6 and number 7. I've seen LSU have the number 1 recruiting class by the end of the year. They end of the summer, they had Bryce Underwood, they had Decor Moore, they had all these different recruits, and they ended up being 7th and 8th. And a lot of that is because LSU struggled, right? They were still a 9-4 team, but they had a huge drop off late in the season, which allowed guys like Bryce Underwood and Devin Harper, a guy who's from Shreveport, leave for Ole Miss, and of course Bryce Underwood leave for Michigan. And also there was a lot of negative. Now there's also a lot of negative recruiting too, because there's a lot of stigma around LSU that they didn't have the money to pay for NIL, which wasn't necessarily true. It just LSU just had a lot of bad. They were really organized with NIL, right? LSU and Florida State are very similar. Where yes, you may not have the money like maybe Oregon or Texas A&M have, but they have the money. It's all about organization, how you allocate the money, and what LSU's done in the past, 6-7 months is really they've kind of done this kind of NFL style of how to build a roster. And a lot of that's because of Austin Thomas, who did the same thing in Ole Miss. You've seen Ole Miss have a lot of success with it. Now they're doing the same thing to LSU, and that's why they're able to pull in the number 1 transfer portal class in the country. That's why they're able to maintain some of the top prospects for the class of 2025, and on top of that, keep some of the players on their current roster. Right, there's a lot of smoke that Caden Durham might be leaving for Oregon, and that was quickly ended. So for LSU, I think they still have time. I mean, Corey Raymond's great at recruiting. We've already seen him pull one of the top guys in the state of Florida, and DJ. So I mean, I think there's plenty of time for LSU to build a top roster. But there's going to be a lot of schools competing for the top recruits because everyone can pay now, right? We've seen Sacramento State sign one of the top receivers in the country. It's one from Mississippi, by the way, which is a really hard place to recruit because you don't know what those guys are going to do. And then on top of that, Texas Tech has a lot of money. Houston, a lot of people don't realize how much money Houston has. So when they start investing in that program, how good are they going to be? I mean, you're seeing a lot of different styles of how schools are approaching things, and it's really about the right way to do it. You don't want to invest too much into the transfer portal because we've already seen that happen with Florida State, and that they ended the season 2-10. And I think Florida State can win quickly because they're in a state like Florida, but you've seen kind of the downfalls of relying too much on the transfer portal. But you've also seen the downfalls of programs who rely too much on NIL. For a great example, that was Texas A&M. So I think there's got to be an even balance, and Ohio State perfected that really last season, where not only were they able to recruit well in high school ball, but they're also able to focus on the needs through the transfer portal. And I think Ohio State is kind of the model. And really, I think that's how LSU is playing right now, given how they're building up the roster.
Grant, you bring up so many good points. I'm right there with you. I think also with Ole Miss, and you talked about Austin Thomas, all the wonderful things he did at Ole Miss to help build that roster. I think much like Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, and a lot of SEC coaches are really trying to transition their program to that NFL approach from top to bottom. And I think, like you said, I think people necessarily assume that SEC schools have the money to spend. But again, I think that with SEC schools having to build an elite roster, but also I think the biggest thing, the challenges like LSU, like Ole Miss, like Alabama being in the SEC, is that has to translate immediately, where some of these other schools, they're not in the hot seat if they don't win right away. And I feel like that's a lot of the burden too. And I think, like you said, LSU's not trying to look to get the number 1 class on paper, like a Texas A&M. They're trying to get the top class that's going to translate immediately, because then there becomes that pressure. That's what I think a lot of people don't lack. And you brought up some great points. Like I've said it too, I've been reiterating, a lot of people don't understand why Keyshawn Henderson's at Houston. But a lot of these schools, because they are not spending exuberant amounts of money building with elite talent, with all the names that come with these high profile price tags, they're able to acquire some really top talent. But they're also, I think now, and you hit on it, is they're allocating the way they move funds, but they're also balancing the roster not to go so heavy. Like you said, you can't just rely singly on transfer portal talent to pull you through a season, much less for the long haul. Same thing with totally building on young talent. So some really great points. But again, going back to LSU and what they've done there, of course, a couple days ago, Ethan Booby Feaster is a kid that I personally watched and scouted for a very long time. Of course, the Louisiana native. It seemed like LSU was in the hunt for a very long time. He ends up, throwing a curveball to all the Texas schools, SEC schools, and heading out west. Have you heard anything as far as? And I mean, I feel like LSU will continue to recruit him despite his decision. Have you heard anything of like new intel as far as that? As far as, will LSU continue? I know that they have a lot of options, obviously, in that 2026 class with the receiver room, but he's definitely a talent that you don't want to let get away either.
Right, and but the thing about LSU, they're in a great spot right now because they already have 3 wide receivers already signed on. I think right now, Jabari Mack has announced, he announced a couple weeks ago that he should announce recruitment. Which I had a feeling he was going to do anyway because from talking with him and just understanding where he was at LSU, that didn't shock me that he shut down his recruitment. Kenny Darby it looked like Alabama was in the race. They had a chance to steal him from from the boot. He shut down his recruitment. I think Tristan Keys, from the way he's looking at right now, I think he will shut down his recruitment really soon too. I was at the camp at the Friday night last camp, and LSU actually had him working as a counselor, even though he's not even on the roster. He's still senior high school. They had him working at the camp, and he has a really close relationship with both Jabari Mack and Kenny Darby. And matter of fact, him and Kenny were chilling with each other the whole entire time. They're throwing the ball around. When Bo Bentley announced he was going to Oklahoma, they're like, "Who's he going to throw the ball to?" The whole entire time. They even Tristan posted on his Instagram post like, "Who are you going to throw the ball to?" And it just seems like he's going to stay at LSU. And then I think that's what's really going to happen. So you already have 3 guys right there. Now, obviously, things could change, right? I mean, things could change. But as of right now, LSU has 3 receivers in the recruiting class. They may go after one more. It also depends on who's leaving after this year because of the transfer portal and NFL draft, just stuff that happens. But also for next year, for the class of 2027, they can sign whoever they want. I mean, the number 2 receiver in the country in the Eastern Roll is right there in New Orleans at Brother Moore High School.
I've had a chance to see him off. He's on OT. So I mean, he's one of the kids that he's one of those that, he's going to translate. Like, he already has so many finesse skills right now. And then like you said, he's only a 2027. So just I can only see how much more he's going to be explosive. I mean, that's a kid that if you're in the circle like us that have gotten to watch him personally and up front, we hear a lot about him. But I think, as we get more film on that kid, I mean, his stock has really risen now that he's done some of these off-season camps. He's some Under Armour and whatnot. So he's another kid that everybody I think is going to be booming after. Talented kid.
Yeah, and Easton, I've seen him kind of grow up. I saw him as a sophomore. I'm like, this guy might be the best receiver in the country. Like, I mean, anytime he touched the ball, it seemed like he was going the distance. I mean, he's an incredible player. I've seen him grow up. I actually happen to know his family pretty well. Too, so that's been a plus. But then also at St. Aug, you also have Miguel Whitley and Raekwon Williams, who are blowing up. And Miguel Whitley sounds like he is the guy. I mean, Raekwon Williams is also a guy too, but Miguel is already ready, right? He's already has the body type. Raekwon still has some growing to do, but he seems like he could be a 4-star, top recruit in the country. I mean, they're both in the top 15, and really, I think both of them had a chance to even go up in the rankings. So you got 3 guys in New Orleans right there that LSU could get them to sign now. But I think that, of course, those guys are not going to admit right now, of course. But, when you're in a state like Louisiana, you can sign the best 2 receivers in the country and you're fine. And then you're going to find like a 3rd receiver. And that's really why LSU has been able to produce receiver after receiver after receiver, because they're always going to have one or two of their best receivers more than likely are from Louisiana or have Louisiana ties to some capacity.
Exactly.
Well, we're definitely going to see some good and bad things happen on the recruiting trail for some of these teams, but I know Georgia, you want to talk about a team that felt like they weren't mentioned one bit. That's got to hurt.
Yeah.
It's like they heard
Georgia,
Florida, Miami, and Florida State, but not Georgia. I mean, they're definitely paired up today for sure.
Yeah, Georgia's definitely been looking ways to get loaded. And going back to Kennon, I know we kind of got a little bit off topic, kind of just putting the scope, but just going back to Kennon, I think that, he's right there at that 6'1" mark, 170 pounds. He's got good size as a corner. He's got really keen instincts, exceptional ball skills. I think that again, the way that his skill set sets, he could be, a threat on lots of key parts in that secondary. I From the film we were watching earlier, we see that he mostly is in that cover two scheme. Like I said, he's just got really great aptitude when it comes to being able to match with those larger wide receivers. Even though some have him listed at 6 foot, 6'1", for a corner, he can still, he can still match up pretty well, despite his frame, with some of those taller, large wide receivers, which definitely, he's going to need even at Florida State. He's got really good fluidity when he's turning and running against his opponents that show tight coverage. I think one of the things, like I said, he's still, even though he's a 5-star, there's still a lot of skills I think that he can refine, and he'll fine tune for me. To be able to go head to head with some of those opposing offense he will face, even ACC down the road. But for me, that what really stands out for me is he's just a neutralizer. I think that he's just got really good potential to neutralize offensive threats. I know on paper last year, he wasn't really good as far as the numbers, as far as interceptions. I think he only had one, but I think what he's really good and what makes him such an interesting threat, or like that threat neutralizer, is that he's really good at stopping plays early and making sure that there's no points on the board. So while some of his numbers, may not be very high up there yet, I think that he's really good with his skill set in making those situations where he neutralizes offensive threats quickly and shuts it down. So while he may not be putting up high numbers on paper, I think that his abilities really transcend. So again, I liked how he played around a little bit, like you said, with all the Florida State schools, but some of the other teams like Georgia and everything, could have had some depth with him at corner. But again, this is a recruitment. This is a 5-star kid. I always say that it's a long way till December. I think that he's locked in with Florida State, but things can change. Dominoes can change. Dominoes fall, things change. We've seen it every day. But I like this get for Florida State. I think that, like, we mentioned earlier that I think this saves Norvell, buys him a little bit of time. I think now that I think had he not had a successful summer in the recruiting trail, there would have been even a lot more pressure for the way he starts the season. But I think now he's kind of bought himself a little bit of time, like Grant was talking about, and we've been talking about. I think he's bought himself a little bit of time, having success. Definitely landing this 5-star in Kennon will really help ease the thing. But again, I think he's going to have to really come out. Mike Norvell and this team are going to have to come out the gate running with this team that they have on board. And I think that he buys himself some time. But again, huge pickup for the Noles in the top corner in the state of Florida. And just overall, like I said, I think he's only going to get more refined with time. And as he does, I think he's really going to develop, as a dual threat on both sides of that secondary.
Well, I mean, it's a much needed win for the Florida State Seminoles. And with that said, we give a congratulations to Florida State on a fine win on the recruiting trail on today's edition of the Watch Party of Chauncey Kennon. I will say to Miami and Florida, there's plenty more recruits. Same for Georgia, LSU, and Oregon, but that's pretty much for everybody. There's always bigger fish in the sea for sure.
No doubt. So another big weekend on the recruiting trail. We have a few more coming down. I know Kentucky fans are definitely waiting for a elite quarterback to come on the board. Matt Ponatowski out of Cincinnati. They are praying and hoping that they finally got their guy. I mean, this is a kid who's the Ohio State football player and also baseball player of the year. So, Kentucky's had all the steam in this one. They're hoping that they can finally win a big one on the recruiting trail. So, yeah, that's going down later tonight when we have more commitments on the way. So, I don't know what we schedule for the next commitment watch party, but again, glad to be here with you guys to talk recruitment and reaction as always.
Well, we'll say though, I'm glad you mentioned the Nets recruiting party, Leanne, because the Nets one is on July 11th. And this time it involves Florida, Texas A&M, and Ohio State, as we'll be having a commitment watch party for KJ Ford, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:15 p.m. Central Time on the Florida channel, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and recruiting channels, where we'll be going over our take on the commitment watch for KJ Ford. And let me tell you something,
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun ride. And
it
after
will.
that,
One of the
we've
top
got,
players. Yep.
oh, yeah, Caden Prothrow is next. Next Saturday, noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where it will be on the Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Texas, and Georgia channels. And we've got Nick Abrams the third on Michigan, Oregon, Georgia, and Alabama. No worries, though. There's plenty more watch parties to come, including LSU, Florida State, Miami, and all the other channels, all right there on the Boys College Football Network. And the little ticker down below where you see the website, we've got it all. Got the links, got the news, everything. You got the list of hosts of each of your favorite teams, each of the favorite hosts, all right there. And you got the list of writers. Get out there, Capital One. You got Leanne Herring. Well, you know, she bringing that magic everywhere on the Rebel Walk, Wildcats Wire, Ole Miss Live at the Voice College Football, on the Move Wednesday nights with the man himself, Mark Rogers, and writing those articles on the Voice College Football website. And you got the list of shows everywhere, including tonight's edition of Florida Gators Live. And there's the team channels. If your favorite team is not on there, no worries, it will be added. And you got the forum discussions all over the place, including your favorite teams, each in the Power Four. No worries, Group of Five will be added. And you got the news articles and the homepage. That being said, we wish y'all a happy Sunday afternoon. But before we go, Leanne, what have you got going on in the magical world of college football this week?
Magic world of college football, of course, more high profile commits coming off the board. As you guys mentioned, I write for USA Today Sports Media Group covering Kentucky. So we are wrapping up the FIBA 19U, a lot of Jasper Johnson, along with a lot of Kentucky prospects. So I'm dueling today with football and basketball, of course. But just want to, as you guys know, I'm here in Texas, Texas native. Just want prayers for all those families that have been affected by the floods out in Kerr County. That's just up a ways for me. We've had a lot of affected our sports football families and other sports families. So prayers for all those families and those girls right now during a difficult time. Our prayers are with you from all three of us and along with the Voice of College Football.
Agreed. We send our prayers to everybody in the state of Texas. We want to make sure everybody's all right. And there we go. Our prayers are from right here at the Voice of College Football. Grant, what have you got going on LSU at the Voice of College Football and other aspects of the sports world?
Yeah, of course. So tomorrow we're gonna have our live show, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't know what's exactly on the table for that. Still have to go through my notes and figure out what's going on because, like I said, right now it's kind of a dead period. But I always try to figure something out. Like there might be something where, we might. What I might be doing is I might be doing a because what I've been doing a kind of like a Mount Rushmore series. So last week we did running backs, receivers for the live show. I'm gonna put those clips up sometime later on. Haven't gotten a chance to go back and edit them because I need to go back and edit a few things. But that should be up sometime, either tomorrow or sometime throughout the next week. But then also we're gonna be doing what I'm probably gonna be doing is gonna do Mount Rushmore of the offensive line and the defensive line for LSU. We're gonna do something like that, and then on top of that, and there might be some other things to talk about, recruiting news, you name it. But I'm very good at finding things to talk about. I like to talk, so.
There we go. We're always happy to look forward to see what you got on LSU at the Voice of College Football. And of course, you can check me out on Alabama with the Voice of College Football Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Crimson Tide Live, and on the Alabama Call-In Show, 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where Jeffrey and I take your call on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you can check me out on Jack the VOCFB on X/Twitter and on Instagram and Threads at Jackson Johnson 543908. And you can check me out on my personal YouTube channel, Jackson Johnson 979, where I host my show, The Jackson. And of course, you can check out Florida Gators Live, which is on tonight, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, with Tyler and Tyler. And of course, you got Florida State Live, with Sam Moore and Matthew Lennox, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Grant Chasseray on LSU Live Mondays at 6 p.m. Central. Oregon Ducks Live, you can check it out Wednesday nights on Oregon at the Voice College Football. Georgia Bulldogs Live, where you got Matt Green and Bo Underwood, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Central Time. Miami Hurricanes Live, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern with Cam Underwood and Mark Rogers himself. And there's a new upcoming show, so tune in to Miami at the Voice College Football for that upcoming show. And guess what it is? Miami Primetime Live. Who's hosting it? That's why you like, comment, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to each of these channels so you never miss another video or another update whatsoever. And with that being said, we wish you all a happy Sunday afternoon.